Hello everybody, I'm Camille.
I'm Chris.
And we are making a sink. So, a few things. One is, it's hot as hell, so the air is on, deal with it.
Yeah, it's very warm in here.
It's just how it is.
You know, it's over 90 degrees in New York City today.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Two is we are doing a Bogue house overview, and we're talking about 6 fragrances.
Yeah, it's not all of his fragrances,
No.
but it's
a good collection. I love YY, Maai,
Mem, OE.
and these are all Chris's bottles he bought himself.
Yep.
And then we also have a sample of T-Rex, and we have a sample of Lita that was sent to us by the band manager of, what's their name? The band?
Duo.
So this was a collab, the most recent work that
Yes.
he's released. So there we go.
Yeah, so, I mean, also before people start commenting, Lita is under the Bogue name.
Yeah.
T-Rex is under the zoologist name. So he
Right.
did this for Victor Wong and
Yeah.
for zoologists. So it's not really Bogue, but it's Antonio Gardoni.
That's
who
the only outlier
is
here.
the nose for all these. And we'll also mention Allegretto, which he did for Berceuse.
Berceuse.
Yeah, Berceuse, the Allegretto, which we had a sample of, but I actually used it up. Sorry, so we're just going to go through
Yeah, we'll
that
just talk
at
about
the
it.
end. Yeah.
All right.
So I'm super excited about talking about Bogue.
Chris is a super
because
fan. I mean, as you can see.
Yeah, I'm a super fan. I love Antonio Gardoni's work. I think he was one of my first loves of, you know, when it came to like artisanal fragrance. And it took me a while to kind of buy a Bogue because of like, you know, the quarantine and shops weren't open and stuff. So I was kind of nursing a little sample.
Yeah, he went to get it from Scent Bar to support the brick and mortar because we do appreciate having that available to us.
Yeah, I've told the story in a few
Yeah.
different contexts, which we could get back into in a second. But,
Right.
you know, we do need to be lubricated for this.
Yeah, so let's do wine.
Yeah, so it's perfect because it's hot out, right? So we're going to do a nice, crisp white wine.
And before
right
I
from the
forget,
fridge.
there are a bunch of Buy Me a Coffee shout-outs to do.
That's right. So you've been on top of that.
I've been on top of
I
this. I am the bookkeeper of this channel, / editor, / all the rest. And yeah, people have been donating kind of like crazy, and we're really grateful.
Yeah.
And so to make it a little more special, we're going to do one shout out per video. So our first shout out, well, first let's
lubricate first?
Yeah, let's
All right,
pour this
we
wine.
need to be ready. All right, so what do we have right now? We have a New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc.
Yeah.
You know, I really should have gotten an Italian wine because Antonio's are Italian, but it's what I had in the fridge, so apologies. But we've been really loving these New Zealand Sauvignon Blancs.
We really have.
We had one yesterday that was quite lovely.
Yeah, I mean,
I
if
think
you've
it's
been watching
great.
us for a while, you know that we're sort of new to white wine, but we've been
Yeah.
really enjoying it.
We have.
So.
And pretty much anything from New Zealand in terms of Sauvignon Blanc has been really good. So we haven't had this one. It's Decibel 2019 Sauvignon Blanc. It says here that it's a product of Daniel Brennan. I don't know Daniel Brennan, but I trust the place I got this from. Grand Street in Williamsburg, all the way over by the East River. The guy Josh, I think he's the owner. Awesome shop, awesome guy. So let's see what we got here.
I've been finding a lot of the white wines I've been tasting lately have like a real pear quality to them.
I think that could be a Sauvignon Blanc thing.
It might
they have
be.
like a very,
It's like a fruity floral thing going on.
but also like straw and grass.
Yeah. Okay, so our first slurp is for P. Jones, professional
P.
stinker,
Jones.
longtime viewer, P. Jones. So
That's
thank
right.
you so much.
I know P. Jones. Well, I know from.
Yeah, we recognize the name.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right.
Ah, that's lovely.
That's a
That's
weird
really-
one. It's on the sweeter side than we usually drink.
So I kind of had a feeling of that.
Yeah.
Based on the low alcohol content. I think there could be a little bit of residual sugar in there. I don't know, but
yeah, it's sweet.
it's still
It's nice,
lovely.
though. It's
you know,
very
especially
refreshing.
it's so hot in here,
Yeah.
and you know the kind of like chill and the greenness of this. I think.
Yeah,
is
I really
quite nice.
appreciate the the sort of like floral quality that a lot of white wine has. It's closer to perfume than red wine, in a lot of
I
ways.
agree.
Yeah.
Red wines are much tighter, typically when they're younger. But this is like,
Beautiful.
I mean, you could bottle this and spray it on yourself.
Also, can I plug something shamelessly?
Absolutely.
Shameless plug, everybody. So I'm very nervous about this, but I am trying to get my art YouTube up and going.
YouTube.
Art YouTube. So I'm
Art YouTube.
No, I don't like that.
Okay.
so as you may know, I basically am a professional crafter for a living, and so I've been trying to challenge myself to like record the process and put it on YouTube, and hopefully, create a bit of a passive income eventually. But it's also just fun.
Oh boy. Oh.
We'll see.
We're gonna get all kinds of hate now. They're like, here we go.
Well, it's a hustle being an artist.
Yeah, it
so
definitely is.
You got to do what you got to do, and a lot of it is, shameless self-promotion. So
And
that's what we're doing.
It's on
now.
your personal page.
Yes, it's
right?
my personal page. So I'll link that below. But if you can give me a follow on my art YouTube, or subscribe rather.
Yeah.
There's a video coming up where I do a giant portrait of Chris's face.
Yeah. So actually, a bunch of folks pointed it out. It was behind us.
It was in the background of our previous few videos. So if you're curious to see the process, check it out. That'll probably be released next week or within the week. So there we have it. All right, Bogue.
Yeah. Okay, back to Bogue.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk about Maai. So when you started getting me into fragrance and I started smelling things, there were a number of things that you shared with me.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of fell in love with those. Mitsuko was one.
Mm-hmm.
Pandora from Dawn Spencer Hurwitz was another.
Yeah.
And then like randomly, I was just like, I was kind of like inspired by these, and I just went to Lucky Scent's website and just ordered like $200 worth of samples, which is really easy to do. Like on Lucky Scent.
I think we've all been through that phase of like getting into fragrance where you just like want to catch them all, like try them all, because it's sort of like the best way to get started. Spending a lot of money on samples.
I mean, it's kind of a necessary evil.
Yeah,
of this
I don't
hobby.
really do that so much anymore.
I don't either. But when you don't know what you're looking for,
it's a really good way to get started.
What else do you have to do? You
Yeah.
know, so I was just kind of, and I knew that Lucky Scent was kind of a thing. Like it's like well respected in terms of having like a good curation of things. So I was just reading, and I didn't really have a pointed strategy in what I was doing. So I was just reading, and I picked up a bunch of stuff. And one of them was Bogue Maai. I didn't know Antonio. I didn't know the Bogue house or anything about it. I was just like, this sounds kind of interesting. So
yeah, and you watched a very detailed review from Therapeutic Fragrance.
yeah, so that was a little bit later. So what happened was I saw the word Shibra, right?
Right.
And I knew I loved Mitsuko, so
Right.
I'm like, okay, so I mean,
That seems
it
safe.
might have a similarity. It doesn't, kind of, but yeah, there's some similarities, but not really. But anyway, I loved Maai. That was like a standout of that group. And from that first purchase that I did, there were very few that I really went back to and bought bottles of. I think maybe maybe one other thing, of like $200 worth. But Maai I loved, and it was nursing these little stupid dabbers that we all know and hate. And just before lockdown, we had a really fun time at Scent Bar, which is the brick and mortar version of Lucky Scent.
Right. Yeah. There's a
And-
location in LA and New York.
Yeah, and I said, you know what, I would really love to buy it there because we want to support locations where we can go and not have to spend money on samples. We could go and spray the stuff and
Yeah,
talk to
it's
VJ.
hugely convenient.
So I waited until they were open
Mm-hmm.
to get this. So it took me a long time to finally get my hands on Maai, which I loved from that group so much. And it did really change quite a bit for me, like what my interpretation of the fragrance was. Because through that time where I was waiting to buy it, I was trying other things and spraying other things and having different experiences. So at first it was like kind of like an animalic thing to me, and kind of like big, but then it changed, and it was more like kind of like a bitters and amaro and things of that nature. And I was watching videos that, like, this is when we got into YouTube, like really
like
watching
them,
this stuff. So like Brandon from Therapeutic Fragrance, like he had
this like very involved like rating system.
Well, that's what he does, right?
Yeah.
It's really fun.
We miss him.
We do miss Brandon. He hasn't put anything out in a while.
Yeah.
I did send him a message. He's good. He's, we wish him well.
Sure.
Doing his thing. But anyway, I really loved his kind of take on it. And he mentioned he's like bitters and amaro, and he's like, I'm from Portland, and they're like kind of like into that kind of thing up there in Portland.
Oh.
Allegedly, I don't know.
All right. I'm sure there's a cocktail culture there.
Yeah, and like a lot of his points like just really like hit home. I was like, yes, and Anyway, I was also watching videos of Antonio just speaking in interviews on YouTube. And
we'll link some of those.
I find him extremely entertaining, extremely charming, smart.
Yeah.
Just how he tells stories and the stories he tells, I think, are just very, very fun.
Yeah,
and he's just a non-pretentious guy. Like he takes this seriously,
right? But he has fun with it.
Right. He's not like up his own ass.
Yeah, he knows it's just perfume. He doesn't like
It's not curing disease or anything like that. He takes it seriously, but at the same time, it's a fun thing to just kind of kind of shoot the shit over. So I really recommend anyone to like seek out some interviews with him.
We'll put some stuff below.
Smell Stories, the two gentlemen from
Belgium.
I think Belgium.
Yeah.
They had a really long interview with him, which is
it's
very
a good
cool.
one, yeah.
So, we've said all of this in the past in different contexts around some of these fragrances, but I just kind of wanted to reiterate some of that kind of up front. So since I went on about Maai, let's spray that first.
Yeah.
Because I believe it was also his first fragrance.
Yes, I believe that's right.
So 2014, I believe, is when Maai came out. So, first fragrance, holy hell. Like, what a first fragrance to come out with.
Yeah.
So let's give this a shot. So it's funny, because when Scent Bar actually opened up again, I knew I was going to get Maai, and I was like, maybe I'm going to get Mem, but I haven't smelled it yet. And I ended up picking up I Love YY and Maai at the same time.
Because I Love YY was a limited edition, and
because
he had that anxiety.
I did have it. But then the next weekend, I went back and I bought Mem anyway.
Right.
Oh, hell. So, kind of right up front, you get bergamot and aldehydes. Like, that's kind of what stands out to me. And also that kind of Amaro thing.
Yeah. For me, there's like a really pleasant soapy freshness, which is more complicated than just aldehydes. It's a little citric as well. And there's something a bit like waxy powdery about it that reminds me of like urinal cakes, but not in an unpleasant way. It's just got that sort of like talcum powdery quality to it,
Yeah, and in the past, we were saying, this is supposed to be a tuberose fragrance. Like, he was experimenting with tuberose in this.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, including myself, I wasn't really getting tuberose in this.
No.
However,
but we've since smelled the real stuff.
When you actually get tuberose absolute, which is rare to actually put in a fragrance, it's usually an accord, a tuberose accord.
Because it smells nothing like the fresh flower. It basically smells very nutty and oaty and like quinoa. It's like very grainy.
Yeah, grainy and quinoa-y. And then when we had it, we were like, smelled it. I'm like, this is Maai. We're like, this is it. Holy crap.
Yeah, there's some raw materials like that where you smell it and so many things click for you. And tuberose was one of those for us because we were just like, oh, okay.
Yeah, it makes more sense.
That makes more sense.
And you do get that kind of nuttiness in here, but Maai, along with a lot of his other fragrances, it has like this
yeasty, almost beer quality.
Fermented, almost like a
walking,
stale beer.
Yeah. That I love that smell. Walking into a pub.
A dive bar or something.
Yeah, and it's just dried beer. That's the best smell. It's got a little bit of that.
Yeah, it has that. If you've ever been to New York City and went to CBGB's back in the day, it has like that little bit of just
soaked
decades
floors.
of beer just soaked into wood. I don't know how they got that smell out, because now it's a John Varvatos clothing store.
Is it?
Yeah, I have, but
That's
anyway.
depressing. And it's got like a real fresh terpenic lavender as well.
Really? You're getting lavender? So, another thing that Antonio said before is he found this particular tuberose from a small supplier that kind of picks the flower before it's really ready to be picked and distilled.
Interesting. So it's a different...
Or not distilled, but...
variation of the tuberose.
Well, an absolute's not a distillation. It's extraction, right.
Yeah.
So it's a greener kind of tuberose, a little bit young. It's not that kind of full-on old lady thing.
I will say that this smells very, very different on the strip than it does on skin.
It's more animalic on your skin.
Yeah.
It has that kind of
all those funky
styrax
facets.
thing.
All those funky facets really come forward. On this, it smells like a very clean, soapy, powdery, almost like one of those American-style chypres from Estee Lauder on the strip.
Yeah.
You know, like a very clean fragrance, but on skin, it doesn't smell like that at all.
Yeah, you get kind of like more of that styrax, or hyraceum, not styrax, like hyrax kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's like that in between civet and castoreum. It has like that
Hyraceum
thing.
I've been playing around with blending my own stuff, and if you put a little too much hyraceum, you are immediately like in a porta potty. It's like, because it's literally what it is. It's dried up piss made into either a tincture or an essential oil. So it smells like what it is.
Yeah, it's just like, kind of like fossilized, all like the minerals in the urine from the animal. They just kind of crystallize or whatever over time. I actually find that animal note by itself to be one of the more challenging ones.
Yeah.
Castoreum, I could wipe that in myself just like that. I think the same thing with deer musk. I find it very easy, but hyraceum is tough by itself.
Yeah, I've been taking a lot of perfume classes, and Ashley Eden Kessler, who teaches them through the IAO, I highly recommend them. They're linked below every video. Her favorite class to teach is smelling through the animalic materials, because everyone has like really visceral, like different experiences from each other smelling these things.
Right.
So some people have no problem smelling civet. Other people, it'll make them want to gag, Indole is another one where some people find it really comforting, because it's like, oh, it smells like mothballs. It reminds me of my grandma's house,
Yeah.
Other people are like, oh God, it smells like, an old lady in my building who's like mean to me, which is my experience. So it's a very personal, like almost more subjective than all the other groups of materials. And this does contain real civet, which
I don't think it does.
It doesn't?
No, I think it's synthetic civet.
Oh, I thought it was real civet.
Or maybe
I thought it was ethical civet.
No, I think one of them was synthetic. I think it has civet and hyraceum in it. One of them's synthetic, one of them's not. I don't remember. I
thought I remembered that. Anyway, but yeah, this ethical civet, from what I understand, is civet paste collected from like kind of free range civet cats.
We've talked about this in the past.
But it's all very murky and sort of like not clear what's what. But anyway, we've talked about this.
They're in a massive, they could run around and everything, and it's collected once a month or something.
I think they're like posts
treated well,
where they can like scrape their butts on.
Yeah.
Perfumery is very glamorous, everybody. So this is a great one. I struggle with smelling it on the strip because that's not at all what it smells like for me.
But it's very complex.
Yeah, there's a lot going on.
This kind of bready, biscuity, yeasty thing is very consistent in his line.
Yeah, it's almost like a sugar cookie.
Yeah, so he was saying in another interview that he would love to do a gourmand, and you were kind of like saying,
yeah, it was like
there's like this like kind of sweet aspect that's in this, like the bitters, amaro, beer, and Joe from Wafts from the Wasp, he calls it a biscuity kind of thing.
Right, so like
I get it,
cookies.
like
Yeah.
a bready, yeasty thing.
Yeah.
But it's funny because there's some, you know, kind of gross notes in it too.
Yeah.
So it's like a gross gourmand.
So Chris is a huge fan of all of these. I very much appreciate them and I like smelling them on you. But for me, that sweetness is what sort of distances me from these fragrances.
Yeah.
But that's just a personal thing. You don't seem to mind it. And it's also possible that, like, you know, depending on who smells it, they're picking out different things. Because as you said, it's very complex.
Yeah, it's not straightforward,
No.
this fragrance. And on your skin, it's going to be different. Like, I even was noticing difference between putting it on my wrist and my chest.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I was spraying it on my chest, just lounging on the couch and stuff. And it was very different than smelling it on my hand. And also different, like, you know, it's super hot and humid today. That makes a difference as well.
For sure.
But I absolutely love Maai.
Should we just do Maai and Mem in this video and make that part 1 and then do the rest in the other one? I feel like we did a lot of chit-chatting.
Yeah.
Let's break it up. We're breaking it up in 2 parts.
No.
Yes,
If it gets broken up, I've failed.
I'm the editor. I decide. Let's just do it that way.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
So, Mem. Let's talk about Mem. So this is, I find that this one is the one that people gravitate towards.
This gets the most attention, I feel like. Yeah.
And I have some things to say. I love Mem. But I have some things to say about how I think people perceive this versus the way it really is.
For me, it's a very similar fragrance to Maai.
Very similar.
Yeah, this one, again, like, this is supposed to be, much like Maai is supposed to be a tuberose chypre, and it's like, tuberose, huh? This is supposed to be like a lavender chypre, and it's like, lavender, huh? I don't know if I would have gone there. But supposedly there are like 5 different kinds of lavender in here.
Yeah. He said that he has different parts of the plants, like from different sources, and he blends them together to come up with his version of lavender.
Yeah. So this one to me is even sweeter than Maai.
It is, but it's also pissier.
Yeah, it's dirtier as well.
I mean, we've showed this to some other folks. I think when we did the grab bag with Ryan from Bonfire of the Vanities, we had Maai and Mem both in the thing, and I thought he was going to gravitate towards Mem because of that lavender. He smelled this, and he's like, oh, he's like, this is way too animalic. No way.
Yeah.
Puts it down, and I'm like, really? But yeah, if you're not used to this kind of stuff, I think this could be off-putting because of that.
I mean, this is one of those fragrances that you need to have a certain level of confidence to wear, I feel like.
You do.
Especially like you've gone outside having sprayed this a million times, and it does really provide you with a big cloud of stink.
So last summer, I guess it was August, it was still muggy and humid, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to wear a nice lavender. So I decided to go to Mem, right?
Yeah.
I sprayed it on 5 times, maybe 6 times. I don't remember. And I went out. I was at a bar with a friend of mine, and I was just smelling myself to the point where I was embarrassed.
Yeah,
like,
there's
not that
some very
I don't love it.
self-conscious.
Like, I was loving it, but I'm just
Yeah.
like, people are definitely smelling this, like, way too much, and it's just
Yeah.
like muggy and hot, and they're just smelling like kind of a funky lavender thing.
Yeah.
But also that yeasty, bready thing is still there. It's kind of a string that through a lot of his fragrances.
To me, it's like, it smells like fresh wood shavings. It's very terpenic, and I think that's probably coming from the lavenders. It's very terpenic. And it has it's almost like if you poured a sweet white wine on these wood shavings, like a Moscato, you know?
But also kind of, and then took like a sugar cube, right?
Yeah.
Doused it in beer, lit it on fire, and mixed it up in there.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, almost like this burnt sugar.
There is a burnt sugar quality for sure.
It's such a strange
weird.
fragrance. There's nothing, I mean...
You know, I think part of that burnt quality is rose oxide.
Good. So, yeah, so that's another thing. We're not talking about Douleur here, because we don't have it.
We don't have it, but we have smelled it.
And I find that Douleur, like, it's that yeasty, bready, candied, caramelized sugar thing, but just amped up. And it's like, you know, without a lot of the more traditional floral bergamot thing happening. It's just like almost like a caricature of one of his other fragrances.
Yeah.
You know, like you get the face paintings and like, you know, or the drawings in Central Park. If they did me, like the chin is this long and the nose is like that.
Yeah.
That's what it is. It's a caricature of some of his other fragrances. I think it's very cool, but I also say, I want to know when people wear that.
Yeah. And to come back to Mem, you know, when you hear, oh, it's like a lavender fragrance, I think you're setting yourself up with expectations that are completely like diametrically opposed to what this is.
Yes.
So forget lavender. It's not about that for me. It's like...
So that's kind of what I was saying at the beginning. People say, oh, this is a lavender fragrance. It's because they're reading lavender.
Yeah.
If you were not prompted with lavender, it would be hard to come up with lavender.
Yeah, it's like
terpenic, yes.
You're in a bathroom in a pub. There's like a urinal cake. There's, you know, like a stewed, fruity sort of smell in the air. That beer. Yeah, there's a lot of that going on.
And it's opulent at the same time. It's
just like, I mean, I appreciate it as a fragrance, for sure.
I mean, if you want a point of view, which is important to us with fragrance, these certainly have it.
We haven't put our Venn diagram up in a while. So I'll do it now. This is our fragrance evaluation Venn diagram for stuff we want to talk about on our channel.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just like a little guideline for us and for our viewers to like
just understand.
Yeah,
you know,
where we're coming from.
Yeah,
that's it.
But yeah, so also both of these fragrances are very big, they're powerful, and they last a long time.
They're very concentrated.
Yeah, so, you know, if you have this on you and you know, have it on you all day and then go to bed without showering, it's going to be all in your sheets the next morning. You're going to smell it for a long time. So, you know, you're definitely getting your money's worth if, you know, your criteria is longevity and projection, because these have it.
I much prefer Maai, personally.
I do as well, but I'm
getting a lovely like rose off of it now. Very nice. It smells much more classic.
Yeah, now it's really turning kind of like traditional Chypre.
Yeah.
Well,
but again, on the strip, it's different.
But also by traditional, I mean more like 80s powerhouse Chypre.
Yeah.
That's so friggin' good.
Okay.
All right, so I think next, well, you want to do your cut. You want to do a cut.
I do.
Yeah. But we're going to keep going here. Just know that. Just know we're doing this in one take.
I don't think anyone doubts that.
All right.
All right, everybody. See you in the next one.
Pew.